Well, guys, it looks like the Toronto Maple Leafs have finally got their man, 3 years in the making, in Joe Thornton. They've signed him to a one-year deal worth 700,000. We all know that 3 years ago it was highly rumored that Thornton was going to be coming over the same year Patrick Marleau signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, that never happened, and now 3 years later, Joe Thornton has finally now signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I mean, what does Thornton bring to the Toronto Maple Leafs now? He brings obviously a wealth of experience. He brings great playmaking ability. He's going to make that already dangerous power play even more dangerous, probably like 10 times more. He's scored 420 career goals in his career. He's got 1,089 assists. That's assists alone, not points. So that really jumps out to me. He's got 1,509 career points and 1,636 games. He's played in 179 playoff games where he scored 31 goals, 102 assists for 133 points. And obviously, the playoff games really stand out too. As we know, Toronto has been a playoff challenge team. Joe Thornton now, a lot of people say, well, he hasn't won a cup either, so what's he going to do for the Leafs? But he hasn't won a cup, but he's a guy who's been there, though. And Toronto hasn't had too many guys that have really been there, too many like high-profile guys that have been there. Tavares obviously came over. He doesn't have a ton of playoff experience before he came to Toronto. He obviously never went that far with the New York Islanders. And for Thornton, I mean, he's going to bring that experience to get Toronto over the hump. Obviously, the Leafs young guys got to do the work for themselves and show everyone that they can do it too. But I think Thornton really brings a lot of help. Just having a guy in your room that's been there before, I think that's a very underrated attribute that teams bring in that people maybe don't think so much of. But I think it is a really good attribute to have a guy like Joe Thornton in your room, no doubt. Looking down the Leafs lineup, it's what really intrigues me is where's Joe Thornton going to play? Is he going to play center or is he going to play wing? And the Leafs center depth looks like this: Austin Matthews, John Tavares, and either one of Joe Thornton now and Alex Kerfoot. Kerfoot's also listed as a winger. So does Thornton come off his natural center and play top six wing? Because we have to remember that after the Leafs traded out Kapanen and Johnsson, those guys really helped with Toronto's offensive depth, and those guys are now gone, so they lose some offensive depth. I think they bring in Thornton to kind of shore that up a little bit, to have some offensive support outside of the big four. And if he plays on the wing, I mean, I think it's more of a second line thing, not really a guy who's going to play on the top line. I think their top line looks something like maybe Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Zach Hyman. Then the second line, maybe Mitch Marner, John Tavares, and Joe Thornton. But that's just my guess. If Thornton doesn't play on the wing and he does play his natural center position, I definitely think he plays on the third line, no doubt about that. I think you're gonna if he does play on the third line, he's gonna the Leafs are kind of gonna get that identity back where they're the three-headed monster and whatnot. And going forward now, I mean, Toronto now has 1.6 million in cap space here. They have to sign Mikheyev and Dermott still. Those guys are going to be due for raises. Maybe Mikheyev not so much since he came off an injury-riddled season, unfortunately for him. And for the Leafs, I mean, get excited, Leafs Nation. This is a pretty good move. The Leafs are a team that we remember, 5, 6 years ago had a tough time attracting maybe really big profile guys. And all of a sudden, they have some superstars of their own in a high-profile market like that, and that's going to draw high-profile players like Joe Thornton, especially near the end of their career, where you can get them on cheap contracts, and you can maybe say, hey, we got a good shot at winning the cup. Obviously, Thornton thinks they have a good shot at winning the cup. He's right about that. They have a better shot at winning it than the San Jose Sharks do. And with the San Jose Sharks, though, an era comes to an end. Obviously, we know they acquired Joe Thornton back in 2005 from the Boston Bruins. The Bruins completely lost their minds and traded him for a few depth pieces, which really worked out in San Jose's favor despite the Sharks not winning the cup. And I mean, we kind of knew this relationship was on the rocks, I think, with the Sharks and Joe Thornton after Thornton requested a trade to a contender apparently at the trading deadline last year. The Sharks did not fulfill that request. And I don't know if it was out of they want to keep Thornton. I think they did try to move him, but they couldn't. So unfortunately for Thornton, he didn't get to go to a contender then. He does now, but I think that relationship kind of was on the rocks since then. So him leaving San Jose does not surprise me one bit at all. And for the Leafs, who takes that top six winger spot? Is it Thornton or maybe Nicholas Robinson even? He had a really good playoffs. I think he's a guy that fits in on a cheap contract. He's a small forward, but I think he brings a lot of speed and skill, what the new NHL is all about, as we all know. But for Thornton, I think it's going to be a very interesting fit. He finally gets to wear the blue and white all these years later, after so many rumored times. It seemed like every summer we were at the last 3 years, people were saying, "Oh, Thornton's going to Toronto." Of course, it always seems like the Leafs are tied to every trade rumor or free agent rumor out there. But I mean, that's just me. I don't know. I think a lot of people think the same on that. But in fact, Joe Thornton is now a Toronto Maple Leaf. And that's going to be pretty interesting to see him on that power play, especially snapping that puck around to guys like William Nylander, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and John Tavares. I don't know how much he'll see of those guys, even strength, but for sure he's probably going to fit in on that power play. He might even play second unit power play. I don't know. They look like they could use a bit of help on that second unit, especially now that Kapanen and Janssen are gone. So I could see him also fitting in there. But what do you guys think? Comment down below what you think of this signing of Joe Thornton to the Leafs. Where do you think he's going to fit into that lineup? Is he going to stay at his natural center and play on the third line? Is he going to sometimes come up and play on the wing, on the second line, maybe even the first line? And which power play unit does he play on? Does he take the spot of one of the big four on the top unit, and one of the big four slides down for more depth on the second power play unit, and Thornton, or does Joe Thornton maybe slide down on the second power play unit for some depth there, especially like I said earlier, that Kapanen and Janssen are gone? But comment down below, I guess, what you think of all of this. Please like and subscribe and share this video. And yeah, Joe Thornton's a Toronto Maple Leaf now. So, I mean, get excited, Leafs Nation, I suppose. But that's all for now, guys, and I'll talk to you again soon.